Brexit. It's a word that dominated headlines for years, stirred fierce political debates, and redefined the UK's role on the global stage. But more than just a political event, Brexit has reshaped how the world views the United Kingdom. So today we are going to dive into exactly how Brexit has influenced global perceptions of the UK and why that matters. Now, whether you are from the UK or following along from somewhere else in the world, you'll know that Brexit has been a major talking point since the referendum in 2016. But what you may not know is just how much it has impacted the way other countries view the UK, politically, economically, and even culturally. So let's get into that. First, a quick refresher. In 2016, the UK voted in a referendum to leave the European Union, a decision that became famously known as Brexit. The vote was close, with 51.9% in favour of leaving and 48.1% wishing to remain. But while the decision may have seemed like just another domestic political choice, it quickly became a major point of interest on the international stage. The process of leaving the EU officially took place in January 2020 after years of negotiations and political turbulence. The UK's departure signaled a major shift not only for the European Union, but also for global geopolitics, trade and diplomacy. The UK, once seen as a key player within Europe, now had to redefine its global identity as an independent nation. But what was the global reaction? How did this historic decision affect how the world sees the UK? That's where things get interesting. Brexit has undeniably altered the global perception of the UK in a number of ways, and we can break this down into three key areas. That's politics, economics, and culture. And let's start with politics. On the international stage, Brexit has led to a perception that the UK is turning inward. In the eyes of many countries, particularly in Europe, of course, the decision to leave the EU was seen as a form of isolationism, a rejection of cooperation and multilateralism. For European neighbours like France, Germany and Italy, the UK's departure was not just a political decision, but almost a symbolic retreat from shared values. Some European leaders expressed disappointment, while others saw it as an opportunity to strengthen EU cohesion without the UK's influence. And meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United States, traditionally one of the UK's closest allies, has had mixed reactions. While some US politicians celebrated Brexit as a triumph of sovereignty, others worried it would weaken the special relationship between the two nations, particularly in the context of NATO and international security. In broader international forums, the UK now faces a new reality. Without the collective power of the EU behind it, the UK must forge individual trade deals and navigate new diplomatic waters, something that's seen as both a challenge and an opportunity. And then there's the economic perspective. The global financial community has closely watched how Brexit would impact the UK economy, and the results have been, mixed. Before Brexit, London was one of the primary financial hubs of the world, often referred to as the gateway to Europe. But with Brexit, this reputation has taken a hit. Many international businesses that relied on access to the EU market have relocated to cities like Frankfurt, Paris, or Amsterdam. In fact, reports suggest that the UK has seen a reduction in foreign direct investment since the referendum. And this shift has altered the perception of the UK as a stable economic powerhouse. Investors, governments, and businesses around the world have begun to view the UK more cautiously, waiting to see how it will handle trade negotiations and the long-term economic fallout of leaving the single market. However, it's important to note that some countries, particularly those outside the EU, have seen Brexit as an opportunity to strengthen bilateral relations. Countries like India, Japan, and Australia have expressed interest in deepening economic ties with the UK post-Brexit, seeing it as a chance, which they did, to strike new trade deals that are now more beneficial for those countries. So while Brexit has made the UK a less attractive partner for some, it has opened new doors for others. But now let's talk about culture. The UK has always been seen as a cultural powerhouse. Think Shakespeare, the Beatles, Harry Potter, or James Bond. But Brexit has impacted this too, particularly in terms of how the UK is viewed as a cultural leader. For some, Brexit has fed into a stereotype of British exceptionalism, the idea that the UK sees itself as separate or better than its European neighbours. This perception has grown in certain parts of the world, especially where the EU is seen as a positive force for unity and progress. On the other hand, for others, Brexit has painted the UK as a country willing to stand up for its own identity, especially in a world that's becoming increasingly globalized. This has resonated in some parts of the world where nationalism and sovereignty are valued. But culturally, there are consequences. The ease with which British artists, students, and creatives could collaborate with European counterparts has diminished. There's now more paperwork, more restrictions, and less access to funding from EU programs. This has led to a perception, especially in Europe, that the UK is cutting itself off from one of the richest cultural exchanges in the world. So, what's next for the UK and how it's seen globally? Brexit is still a relatively new development, and its long-term impact on the UK's global perception is still unfolding, especially in the financial services. There are still transitional periods. But there's a balancing act to be played between regaining sovereignty and maintaining global influence. For now, the UK is walking that tightrope, seeking to prove that it can be a relevant player on the world stage outside of the EU. Some see the potential for the UK to redefine itself as a leader in global trade, innovation and diplomacy. Others believe that Brexit will leave the UK more isolated and less influential. But one thing is for sure, Brexit will continue to shape the global perception of the UK for years to come. So, that's how Brexit has influenced the global perception of the UK. It's a complex issue with both challenges and opportunities. But what do you think? Has Brexit changed how you view the UK? Leave a comment below and let's start another discussion. And if you enjoyed this video or found it insightful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into current UK issues. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. You know, the next video is right here in the end screen.